Hello readers, since I saw you last, I have a new filming spot in a new office, in a new house, which is part of the reason I've been gone for so long, although not the entire reason. But I thought a great way to come back is to do a Top 10 Tuesday, especially one where I don't have to pull any books off of the shelf. So this week's Top 10 Tuesday is 10 Reasons I Love Reading. So for the most part, these 10 reasons are going to be in no particular order, with the exception of the last one. The last one is my absolute number one reason for reading. And so let's get going. So the first reason that I have for you that I love reading is the vicarious experiences. Now, if you know me at all, you know I'm a bit of an introvert and that I tend to not leave my house very much. It's actually kind of a wonder that I met my wife and got married because I'm so much of a homebody. So if not for these stories, I don't think there are things that I would have any concept of, so any opportunity to experience even vicariously, because I don't leave my house. Reason number two that I love reading is about knowledge building. I like to learn things. All kinds of things. I learned how to play guitar. I learned how to play bass. I am currently learning pointed pen calligraphy. But it is through the reading of books that I have learned so many things, especially things that they, don't teach you in school because revisionist history. So this third one has a story, and so if I were to boil it down to a couple words, I would say stress relief. And this story goes like this. There was a point when I was in the classroom teaching, apparently I was rather cranky, and my students came up to me because they hadn't seen me read in a while because I've had a number of other things to do, and they said, "Here, miss, we need you to read this because you're in a bad mood and you haven't been reading and this will put you in a better mood." And I felt simultaneously seen and like, really? It's like they've got me this figured out, which is cool. But still, I mean, they were my students. This fourth one is about audiobooks, and really there's just something comforting about being read to. My wife and I listen to audiobooks together all the time. We just finished reading the second book in the Dreamer trilogy by Maggie Stiefvater, and it's so comforting to have somebody read a story to you. And so that's, one of the things that I love about reading is that particular experience. Relatedly, we also, in addition to audiobooks, we listen to LeVar Burton reads, and LeVar Burton can read me stories all the time, and I'd be very happy about it. So I'm calling this fifth one Paradigm Shifts, and really what I mean by that is I like reading books wherein the content challenges my perception of the world, because I know that I am not the center of the universe, and therefore there are other perspectives, there are other ways of knowing and being and doing in the world, and I enjoy that challenge. I enjoy wrestling with, well, enjoy might not be the right word, but I am very interested in wrestling with my own biases and my own internalized issues through the things that I read. I feel like it's a great way for me to grow as a human. And then another way that I enjoy this whole idea of growing as a human is through the shared experience of reading. I have in my collection downstairs 3 copies of The Fault in Our Stars. And I'm going to keep all 3 even as I read, because one is my plain signed copy, one is my annotated copy as somebody who grew up in Indianapolis, and then the third copy is a copy that has been annotated by several of my students. And so they have this shared experience of reading the same text and pulling out different things that they found interesting. And then as the next reader engages with that same text, they get to experience the thoughts and reactions of the person who read before them and add their own to it for the person who comes after them. And I think that was one of the most amazing reading events, I think, when I was in the classroom, was watching these girls go through this text and then talk about it later. It was so great. So great. So that shared experience as a way of, making connections with other people. So I think we're at number 7 now, and my number 7 is about representation. It's about validation of experience. And this one is particularly important on my list to me because I think about the text that teachers teach, and there's not necessarily something partisan about the texts that are taught, but there is something political about the texts that are taught and the ways in which they validate or invalidate the experiences of the people in the classroom. I kind of relate this to what we call, the hidden curriculum. There's this tacit instruction that says, if you are never represented in the text that school has deemed to be important, then your lived experiences just are not as important. And that's why there's such a fight for representation. There's a fight for making adjustments and additions to the texts that we teach, so our students don't go through their entire schooling experience and only read texts about people and by people who don't look like them. So I think we're at number 8 now, and number 8 is the fact that language is just fascinating. It's interesting to me, if we think about the teaching standards. The Common Core, standard number 4, has to do with vocabulary and diction. And how authors choose to communicate the things that they are trying to communicate, the words that they choose to put on the page to connect with us, to connect us with each other, to evoke certain feelings. It's fascinating. I mean, and it's a real testament, I think, especially when you know what's going to happen at the end of a novel. Adam Silvera, I'm looking at you. But you still, because of the language, because of the storytelling, you are still invested and rooting for the characters, even though you know your heart is going to be shattered at the end. That is craft. That is language at its most beautiful. I'm such an English teacher. I mean, even though I'm not in the classroom anymore, I can see it throughout these these reasons I love reading. And so number 9 is the fact that texts are situated within a social context. And through reading texts from different time periods, we can gain an understanding of those social contexts. And I find that to be fascinating. It's one of those things for me that didn't click until medieval literature in college. I read Beowulf in high school. I'm sure we got background information or whatever before we started reading it. I didn't get it. My medieval professor took, I think, even more time and said, okay, so here are the values of medieval society. And here are the things that these people lived by. Now, as you're reading this text, here's a lens for you. Look at how these things are articulated in this text. And I know, I'm a nerd and I'm an English teacher, but it's one of the reasons I really love reading. It really is. And so number 10 is my number 1 reason that I love reading. And it has to do with the fact that there was a time in the United States in which people in power legislated against teaching Black people to read. And so because of that, I feel like the fact that I read so much, the fact that I know as much as I know and that I always want to know more, is a big middle finger to those people who decided that keeping a group of people ignorant was the best way to keep them subservient. And so that is why I read, and that is why I was so passionate about teaching my students to read better, and why I am, in the capacity of my job now, so invested in teaching teachers and supporting teachers through the teaching of reading to young children. Because once you learn to read, you will be forever free, right? And so I guess I'm going to leave you with that final thought. And I will say, why do you read? Let me know in the comments. I'll see you there soon. Until then, I'm the supplier wishing you happy reading. Don't forget to be awesome.